Hello, third graders. Today we are going to continue to talk about fractions. And we talked about the definitions of fractions yesterday, where we said a fraction is a way to describe a part of a whole or a part of a group by using equal parts. That uses the word parts quite a bit. Anyway, so I told you guys a story about how we have a running joke in our family about how sometimes your needs are number 1 out of 4, or sometimes your needs are 2 out of 4. But most oftentimes, as a parent, your needs are 4 out of 4. So anyways, when we're talking about those things, when we're joking about that in our family, we're describing where our standing is in our family as a fraction. Because when I say that my needs are 3 out of 4 right now, what I'm really saying is that where I'm ranked, or where I would identify myself as the part of the fraction, is I would identify myself as my needs were 3rd most important in the family out of 4 total people. So that's what I'm trying to say when we're talking about fractions. And you'll notice that you'll use fractions quite a bit in your everyday life once you start looking for them. Like I talked about yesterday a little bit, I said when I cook, I use fractions all the time, fractional amounts. Because a lot of times you'll use measuring cups or measuring spoons, and those have fractional amounts on them. And then sometimes with recipes, they will tell you to put a certain amount of that fractional amount in a recipe and put another certain amount in later. So that's why it's important to know your fractions very, very, very well. So anyways, today we're going to talk a little bit about fraction vocabulary. So we have a fraction right here. You'd read it as 2/3 or 2 out of 3. And the number on the top is the numerator. So the numerator is how many equal parts are described in the fraction that you're talking about with that fraction. So if I was going to say 2/3, I'd mean 2 out of 3 equal parts. This line right here is what's called a fraction bar. Okay, so it separates the numerator and the denominator. The denominator is the number of equal parts in the whole. So remember when I talked about my needs being 3 out of 4 in my family? What I'm really saying is that there's 4 total people in the family, and at that point I'm ranked number 3, which is a little low. So anyways, so we are looking at the numerator of a fraction and the denominator of a fraction. To get you a better idea of what 2/3 actually looks like, I can have a little circle right here, and I can divide it up into 3 equal pieces, because remember, a big part about fractions is making sure that they're divided up into equal pieces. And then what I would do to show 2/3 is I would shade in 2 out of the 3 total pieces of the fraction. So this picture right here would represent 2/3. Now, oftentimes I can represent a fraction in more than one way. So I could also draw a rectangle right here, and I can divide it up. Oop, that is not really quite equal. My drawing skills are not always the best. And then I will put it in 3. I'm going to divide it into 3 equal pieces, because remember that denominator shows total equal parts in the whole. And if I want to show 2/3, I would shade in, I'm having all sorts of problems right now, 2 out of 3 total parts. So today our math focus was I can recognize that fractions can be used to show parts of a whole, parts of a set, or points in a number line. Today we really have been focusing on simply parts of a whole. And this week, before, at least for the first couple of lessons today, we're really focusing on fractions that are less than 1. So where the numerator is less than the denominator. So a fraction with a numerator less than its denominator is a fraction that is less than 1 whole. So it's a part of a whole is really what we're looking at. Just to end up today, I'm going to review a couple of really common fractions that you're going to be seeing as we move on, and the special names for them. So one of them is, the first one that you see is halves. So the parts that you get when you divide something into 2 equal parts. The next one is thirds, the parts that you get when you divide something into 3 equal parts. Then we also have fourths, which is the parts you get when you divide something into 4 equal parts. sixth, there's fifths when it's 5 equal parts. Then sixths, the parts when you get to divide something into 6 equal parts. Eighths, seventh, you would have sevenths, and you can also have eighths, the parts you get when you divide something into 8 equal parts. And we'll be talking about unit fractions as we go along. I just wanted to show you those specific names because you're going to be working on writing them. It's really important that you are able to write out the word form of these fractions by spelling them correctly. And so these pages that you're going to be working on today are going to help you spell them correctly. It's really nice to be able to practice that because it's going to be really helpful as you move on with math, especially into 4th and 5th grade. Have a great day, 3rd graders.